I have my 4 frames finished. The inside edge is finished, and so now we're ready to turn our attention to the scene. And what I'm thinking about is something that kind of goes along with this main graphic. And you recall we have 4 panels to work with, and I have reserved several sheets here, and these are all listed in the construction guide. And what I'm thinking to begin with is a scene that the first panel would have something with sunflowers on it on the bottom, and then the next panel back, box 2, would have this chicken, possibly another sunflower. Panel 3, going back, would have postcards. This postcard, there's a postcard here, and then there's also a smaller one here. Possibly, if we need more space, this little piece could be cut out. And then for the final part of the scene, I'm thinking about this little house and the stamps, and possibly these little chickens coming across. So that's what I'm thinking about right now. I think I'll do some fussy cutting, and then I'll come back and we can play with things and see if what I'm thinking about pans out, or if we make some changes as we go along. The other piece of paper that I've reserved for now is a black, this is montage, to use as the back panel for the whole scene. So I'll be back when I've done my fussy cutting, and we can see what the scene could look like. I've finished my fussy cutting, and I thought that we would look at what I have for each of the preliminary scenes. Now what I've done at this point is just adhered the pieces with some temporary adhesive so that I can easily move them around. And what we're looking at here is the box number 4 panel, the one that's at the far back. And what I have in this scene is these stamps came from the main graphic paper here, and also you can see, I think maybe hiding up here, these 2 little stamps down here. I like to, whenever possible, connect something to not just have it hanging in the breeze. So by using those 2 little stamps, I could connect the edge of this block up to the top as well to give it a little more stability. Now over here on this side, the little house came from this paper, and it's just the little house here, and I cut it so that it extended out here to the left so that I would have a place to anchor it to the frame. I think you can see the house comes right up to the edge, and if I flip this over, you can see how it needs to be anchored to the frame there. And then the little chickens on the front came from the top strip on this page, and what I did was bring the fence line down a little bit so that the heads of the chickens could just be in relief there. Now I am thinking about adding something to the back to just kind of finish off and make this look like the fence has a top there. It kind of depends if I'll add something there independently, or if I think that these elements don't have enough stability, I may put some black cardstock around all of the elements. So that remains to be seen. And I will take photos of each one of these in their completed state and have them at the end of the video. So, and just to show you what this one will look like when it's in its separate box position, this is the paper that is in the back of the box, the montage, and it's also the paper that we'll see when the portal is all put together. So that's the scene in box 4, and let's look now at what is in the next scene, and that's the postcards. And the postcards have come from a variety of different locations. Here in the background, I used this postcard here, and it is cut, you know, I wanted this sunflower for something else, so it has a big hole in it down here, and so that's why there's are other things that are covering it up. I used, sitting up in this corner, I think you can see that it's the image from this page. And then I have two things from this Bon Appetit page. Down here, this element, and then I did end up cutting out the little page from up here. Just add a little more down here at the bottom. You can see I haven't trimmed anything off yet, depending on if I want to rearrange any of the pieces at all. And the background for box 3 is going to be sunflowers. I don't think it's going to be the small sunflowers. I think I have a use for, there's green on the back of this. And so I think it's probably going to be the large sunflowers from the 12 by 12. And we'll see how that ends up looking in the finished project. So here's box number 2. It's the one with the rooster. And the rooster obviously comes from the main paper. And then the little flowers that are down in this corner here, they came from this element here. And at first I thought I would use these flowers somewhere else, so I just cut along their edges. But because I ended up with them here, if I had thought about that ahead of time, I would have just extended this solidly out, and when I cut it out, cut a straight line up here and then come in for the flowers. I think you can see here that I'm not left with a lot of gluing area because of fussy cutting on the edges. And then because I didn't want to have this chicken's rooster head just kind of out there, from this page I took this little sign, and I think it could have been anything, but I just thought that worked, and so I could attach a corner of his head to the sign and then attach the sign up here, and that gives the rooster a whole lot of stability, you can see here. And when this frame is in its box position, a separate box position, this is the paper that I'm thinking will be its background. So it looks a little busy when it's sitting like that, but I think once it, you know, this box is 2.5 inches deep, so once it's sitting in relief, which I don't want to do for you now because it casts such shadows, but once I do that, I don't think it will be too busy. If it is, then we'll switch it out for something else. And finally, on the front box, box 1, I just have a selection of sunflowers. Now, the sunflowers, most of them came from a strip that I just cut along the edge here. And then I also have a couple from the main project page. Actually here and here. These sunflowers are just in the background here, tucked in. So let's stack this up and see what it's going to look like when it's in the portal. We'll start with the background paper, and then add our scene from box 4. Box 3 are postcards. Here's the rooster with box 3, and I think when I was talking about this individually, I forgot to say I've just tucked some little sunflowers here so that it would cover up the background paper and give this a little more stability on that rooster. And then finally, here's our front. So that is what the portal will look like. The next thing I'm going to do is to attach everything permanently to each one of the frames, decide if I need to back the images with black cardstock or anything to give them more stability. And one thing I didn't say was that when I fussy cut the images out, I always go around the edges with a marker. Here I have my black distress marker. Sometimes I use a zig calligraphy marker, just something so that I don't have that white outline around the images. So I'll be back when I have completed adding the elements to each one of the frames. I did decide to back the images on each panel with some black cardstock, so I want to show you how I'm going about that. So the first thing that I want to do is flip the panel over and measure to see what size panel this one is. And this is the 7-inch panel. So the width of my black cardstock I wanted to be an inch shorter because I don't want to encroach on the last ½ inch of the frame so that it would interfere with joining the box together. Excuse me. So I've drawn lines in a ½ inch, and then I'm just measuring up from that ½ inch line to see about how tall I need to have a piece of cardstock to get to the top of this image, and I think that's about 4 inches. So I've cut a piece that's 4 by 6, and I'm just going to use some temporary adhesive to line it up with those lines that I drew and get it attached there, and then flip it over to the front. And then I'm just going to draw around the images, the outline of the images. And this one's pretty simple. Some of them are a little more complex with some holes that you'll need to cut out, etc. So I've got that drawn there, and then also I can come and draw on my images where I can cut those off as well if I have any overhang here on the back. Okay, so now this is just on with temporary adhesive. So now I want to cut just inside of this line. I would say about a 1/16 of an inch all along, just inside of that line. So now I've cut a 1/16 inch or approximately in from the line I drew, and let's check it and see how it fits on here. And so again, I'm lining this up with the lines I drew, and here I can see just from the back, bring this in here, that I do see the edge of the paper all around, and you can check it also from the front. Make sure you don't see any black sitting there. And then it's just a matter of trimming off the rest of these pieces, attaching it to the black cardstock, and then I'll just use some score tape to attach the unit to the frame. I just wanted to show you the back of the Rooster panel, box 2 panel, where I've done 2 backings, one that covers the rooster and this little sign that's behind him, and the other one down here in this corner for the sunflowers. And I think you can see that, especially over here the rooster, I didn't try to get every single little piece backed. Some of them are just too narrow. I just kept this very simple shape. I didn't try to get every little nook and cranny of the beak, etc. And especially over here on the sunflowers, I kept these, the shapes of the black cardstock very simple. I did not try to do the petals, just a little curve behind there. And I did try to support a couple of the little skinnier stems down here. So that's how I did it for the rooster panel. And then once I have the images backed with the black cardstock, I've just added some 3/8 inch score tape to the edges that will attach to the frame. And I've got them laid out here on the front just so that I remember when I flip this which one goes on which side. Sometimes, you know, it's easy to get a little mixed up then. But then it's just a matter of, we've got our, still have our guidelines here. Just removing the score tape backing. And I did make a couple little tick marks up here at the top so I could see where the sign should end up. I do have my guidelines down here in the corner to go by, and now I can see, make sure I'm just going to use the edge of my frame here to make sure that sign stays straight. Everything looks good. You put that down. You can put it down lightly to begin with. Get the little flowers here in the corner. Again, using my 1/2 inch guide marks. Flip that over. And that looks good, so we'll give it a burnish and finish up the other panels.